Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's great to see you again. In my last video, I talked a little bit about using counterweights with the Smooth 5. Now, a commenter brought up the payload weight. Does this push everything over the payload weight for the Smooth 5? And the payload weight officially is 300 grams. Well, I can tell you that it most certainly did. And the commenter said, well, you probably don't want to go over that. Well, technically, yes, you're right. So I don't want people to go out there and burn out their hardware, which is also why I made the video. Because if your hardware is not balanced on the gimbal, you're still going to burn it out, even if you're under 300 grams. I could hear, I don't know if you could, but I could hear the motor working when I recorded that video. And even though I'm over 300 grams, when I start with a balanced device, I don't hear the motor working. So it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't. But I did go back and revise my setup and notice that if I do use just one weight and bring the arm all the way out, it still balances. The gimbal's not on right now. Okay, it's not turned on. And you see it is balanced. It is still a little bit over 300 grams. I think about 315-ish. So it's kind of up to you how you want to work. Do you really want to push it? The commenter also said, well, if you're going to consistently have a heavier rig, you probably need to use a different device. I would agree with that. I think the trade-off is if you go to a bigger, stronger gimbal, you're going to lose all the integration like with Filmic Pro. So then the question is on you as the artist, the user. What is more important, the integration with the apps or to support the weight? And that's something that I cannot answer for you. You have to figure that out on your own. And I apologize for not covering this in the original video. I don't always think about the rules. And I've worked in film and visual effects for a long time, and breaking the rules is pretty common. It's not that we set out to be rebels. It's just that the software and hardware that we have to use to do our jobs doesn't always hold up with the demands of production. And I'm sure that some of you have probably seen the same videos as me of larger gimbals, larger rigs in production, like breaking and falling off trucks. That's just something that happens. Sometimes we have to push the boundaries and take risks. Of course, the risks are a little bit different when it's coming out of your pocket personally, but who wants to live a boring life anyways? I sure don't. But anyways, I just want to show you that you can get away with balancing with a single weight. I think last thing I should mention is that I normally actually don't use the anamorphic lens, so this isn't an issue for me, and this lens is actually pretty heavy. I will use filters, but they do weigh less. I'm actually going to be selling this lens because, well, for other reasons I'll talk about in a different video. And as far as the charging port issue goes that I've already talked about, I normally don't work like this. I actually don't like recording audio to the phone. That is like literally the last option I will choose, mainly because recording the phone always introduces extra static. Even if you're doing things like turning off the Wi-Fi and turning on airplane mode, if you're working with this gimbal, you still have to have Bluetooth on. So there's still some EFI that gets into the final audio. And yeah, you can clean it up, but it's still there, and it still takes away a little bit from the audio when you do clean up in post. And lastly, there's always the question of battery power. If you've been shooting all day and you're an iPhone user like me and you can't swap batteries, you might actually have to plug in and charge the phone while shooting. I can definitely see an argument being made for having to access the port once in a while, but I would say a vast majority of the time, I'm trying to manage my shoots in a way that I don't have to do this. So I do think there are plenty of use cases where you won't have to go the extra mile with counterbalances. You won't have to worry about going over the payload limit. And I want to thank the commenter for engaging me in conversation. You should always question people. I'm just some random dude on the internet. You don't know who I am. I could be lying to you about everything. So just like what that gentleman did, if you hear something that you don't quite agree with, that you think you need to question, you're more than free to always call me out in the comments. Hey, because sometimes I'm wrong, I'm just a person, but I'm not trying to be a dishonest person. Well, once again, I want to thank you all for tuning in, and I will see you again next time.